Wassail Beautiful People. So finally we're at Earth. Why are we at Earth? Oh, can you hear that sigh of relief? The volcano in Iceland has finally sighed with magma, and it feels like the Earth is returning. I've been following it for a few weeks, and I don't really want to dwell on it now, but I do just want to ask the Earth, with a set of cards before we go into Pentacles, what on earth was going on with the Earth? Because it's been kind of absent. So just a really short message. What's been going on with the Earth? What's been going on with the Earth? What's been going on with the Earth? So, it's a lot of sword energy, but that's air, and air is dominating this at the moment. So, the Four of Swords is coming out, a healing. And this really does have that sense of the earth healing. Look at this big sort of stone troll. So there's that real sense of a new dawn coming up on things. And that need for, you know, like a dozing period, like a calm period that the Earth had to go through. And we have the Two of Swords. So that notion of a decision being made is what it would represent in many ways. But this is really just about, there's a real sense of energy of a sort of a sadness, a sort of a, you know, like weary. The Earth was just worn out with all the excitement of Earth epoch. It was too much. It was too much. And then we have the Two of Cups. So we've gone from the Two of Swords, this sense of just being totally worn out, to being, I want to say, like kind of resuscitated, recrowned, to be brought back into an energy of calm. There's something terribly serene and terribly spring blossom with the cherry blossom, the sakura in the background. It's like this was a divine moment, a pause, a waiting, a weariness for this moment. And then we have the Six of Pentacles to end, to flow. It's come back into its flow, and the Earth itself has a renewed sense of awe and innocence about it. So there we go. And on the base you have this overall energy, Five of Swords, the change, the air frequency change that's been coming across. So we're beginning with the 10, because that's what I was told to do, to put 10 first. So Pentacles of Earth, they're outward journeys. So when you've done the first three, all the inner work, you bring your inner work to the outer world. And this Morgan Greer is the idea of having the complete fairy tale, having the castle, having the home, having privacy with the cross, having an abundance. It's everything's kind of perfect, but there's something about the frequency of this card at the moment that has got the additional energy of being too much, being choked, being overwhelmed by the abundance of everything, and being unable to breathe in. It's almost like, I want to say, like a sense of fake gold. So it's her. I'm going to come down to it in a sec. Let's just go through and we get it's this one talking. So let's look at this Ten of Pentacles. It's the next stage down. Again, we have this card that's talking about a kind of a joyful happiness, but there's an element about this card of, there's something about her smile that always looks a little bit sort of like she's got to tidy everything up. It's all very well, this kind of wonderful family gathering and all the children playing, but it's somehow, you know, we're getting this energy from her of, oh, everyone's making a mess and it's me that's got to tidy it up. And this large Pentacle mandala has the Kabbalah Tree of Life in it, and that brings us nicely on to the Tree of Life card here. So you can see how the designs are beginning to flow through a series. So here we have lots of different symbols. We've got planets, we've got a few mathematical symbols, we've got complex old Hebrew energies, and we've also got kind of Mercury in Virgo. So it's an incredibly at-home frequency because Mercury rules Virgo. And it's also, there's something about this card that talks about the difference between the old purple coins and the new coins, as if understanding what's of value in your life with this card. There's something, it says wealth, but there's something about selecting what you consider to be appropriate wealth. And then we have, with this Yggdrasil Kabbalah Tree of Life, the Ten of Materials, as it's called in the Muse Tarot, has everyone standing around a flowering tree. So you get that sense of possibly spring and summer, but there's something very, although they're in a group, there's something very distant about the people. It's kind of like reaching a level of abundance, and the people all standing around and not fully appreciating the actual energy of the natural world that it's delivering to them. There's something very stuck, something very old-fashioned about the collective energy that comes with this card. Like it needs to move on forwards, it needs to come into a new frequency. So this little lady, Ten of Earth in the Good Tarot, she's talking about fairy gold. She's talking about what of gold is real. The idea is, she's kind of, I'm getting energy which I've never done before of Mary the Jewess here. Now Mary the Jewess could create gold, and that's all we're talking about with this fairy magic, is this notion that gold can be just summoned into being. And so to the fairy world, this chest of treasures and things is nothing as beautiful compared to the treasures of the natural world. There's something very much, this card has an energy. There's a wolf and there's her, and they're both staring at you as if to say, well, you've got everything. What more is it that you think you need? Because they don't see the value to this. They have an idea at the top here of an 11th pentacle, which is something other, something different. And then in the Afro-Brazilian, we have this fabulous lion resting on rocks. And here there is a rock that has been turned into an altar with a cloth, and there are the pentacles. This card has a sense of talking about ego. Does having it all, does creating your fairy tale, does that really bring you pleasure? It's not as if the coins here being offered to the lion were brought by the lion. His paws couldn't create this. He needs some kind of outside influence to to massage his ego. So there's something of a warning of the ego within this Ten of Pentacles. It's not a straightforward reaching something. It's almost like reaching something at the expense of everybody else and everything else around you somehow. So now we're going to go to the ones. We're not going backwards through this. We just needed to look at this energy at the moment of the Ten of Pentacles having been the last 200 years, but particularly the last 60 years as well, of being in fixed earth energy that was so unchangeable, and it was increasing in its fury, its greed, its anger, and there is this sense of offering people fairy tales of a possible life which was false in many ways because it wasn't achievable. They're not saying it is achievable now. It very well could be. The point is that it had become so distorted in that earth frequency that the fairy tale meant nothing. It was written for a different time, and the fairy tale that we have to write now needs a new beginning, and that's where we're going now. We're going to the new beginning. Oh, and this one absolutely has to begin here. So, the Ace of Discs, as it's called, it's air earth. I mean, that's the important part of this. This is a new beginning, a new earth. Aces represent the newness, but this is very much surrounded by green feathering and a sense of the breast of a chicken or a hen. There's something very proud of this new frequency, and we have, it says Ophium to Mela or to Meta. If you look this up, it becomes a very complicated phrase that's written around there. It's the rebirth of the Ophicus snake, the Uberos. It's a new beginning in the real world, and it's all about it kind of unfolding in a very I want to say that pineapples and kind of that the breast of a bird, the feathers, the fractals all being different frequencies and sizes, all kind of unlocking. And then in the center we have this wonderful shape. In the middle there are 3 coins and they have 166. I'm not sure, but for me it's talking about a new beginning in balance. A really strong balance. It's like air and earth somehow is really good, because I'm getting a frequency of tree rings, growth. This is a really lovely card. So which ace will we do next? I guess this one, because it's got that sense of air and earth again. Being brought down from the air is a new seed to be planted in the ground, and it already has its roots. It already knows where it wants to be heading to. It knows it wants to reach down into the ground to create something wonderful. It also has that sense with hands of coming together, of planting. There's proper sort of dirty gardening fingernails and things going on in this picture. It's about being hands-on in the transformation that you're trying to create and live by. And then that comes with this kind of very classic Morgan Greer moment, a coin being brought in from the cosmos, a new frequency being hand-delivered to you. And here we have red roses and white lilies, and there is a hedge at the back, which is a portal. It's talking about things being a new opening and a new kind of a lifeblood. The lilies often representing death and funeral, coming through a rebirth, and there being that wonderful scent that you have associated with, particularly stargazer lilies have a very strong smell. And then the next one that still contains the sense of a coin, but this is a tray. And in many of these cards, the trays often fill up, but it's kind of setting a new scene, reveal, a curtained reveal. It's almost that sense of some kind of veil has been lifted and everything's become very colour coordinated. Yellow, that's why I wore the yellow today. I've got the so the creation of the world, the physical. That's very much what's here, but it's that notion of it being newly writable, being completely fresh, having the space to go in any direction. And then we have the Ace of Materials. This is always, this general overall shape reminds me very much of markers on a map. So it's marking a destiny. She has a stick, which is a wand, and it's bound with little creatures, but there's something about it representing a kind of new tune, a flute, a melody. And she's abundant, and the world, she's pulling, this is somehow about dreaming something into reality, pulling something fully formed into the real world. And so this is less the frequency of the cosmos just handing something to you. There's something more about the meditative state with which you will something into being. And then the final one, which is such a beautiful card, is the Ace of Earth. With this wonderful stag. Down below is a rock, and imposed across the rock is a triskelion. That's a reminder, maybe perhaps in this, of the 3 suits that went before, needing to be balanced before you bring the energy into the real world. There are leaves, and the leaves form a sense of being butterflies, that transformation. There's decorative features to the antlers, suggesting sort of new pathways within you to spirit. So you've connected your inner turmoil, and now you're able to radiate out and receive this new energy, this emerging, this dawning kind of frequency. There's also something about this rock that feels very much like a giant tulip that's broken open with new frequencies coming out. But this really does have the sense of the natural world itself drawing the new beginning in. So 2 of Pentacles is about change. Now often we're shown somebody juggling. In this deck, it's less about the juggling, but the interesting thing that you need to think about with the juggling is it's not about juggling emotions, it's not about juggling thoughts, and it's not about juggling with your passions. It's about juggling things in the real world. So coming into this new energy, this new air-earth frequency, and how do you juggle your physical demands that the world brings to you comfortably? How do you do that so that there's no sense of kind of, it's coming across as kind of like, how do you juggle your life around and remove the pegs that are stopping all of the juggling from taking place? There's something about, because the sea behind is very choppy and there's a boat that's on a lean, there's this energetic sense of having not quite worked this out. The intelligence is still blowing backwards on the feathers. And so as I look at the card, I know it's a movement forwards, but it's like this sense of it hasn't fully been worked out just yet. Now, in terms of juggling, there is a real sense of, I'm just going to show you briefly these 3, of this movement of juggling. It's still very much there. You see, this one has that similar message to the other in the Muse deck. Here, she's juggling with these giant roses, and there is an infinity symbol across the roses. And down below, she stands on another rose. But the interesting thing is, it's talking to me often about this element here. Do you have clarity of your understanding of yourself so that your shadows don't dominate the physical world when you come in? Are you able to come into this world with a greater sense of clarity? So there's a sense of questioning what's blocking your motion forwards in that card. I just need to move the cards because I'm slightly taking up too much space. I also hope you can see this video. I've turned the room around because the light just wasn't coming in enough. So we'll see what gives. It doesn't look very clear, but that doesn't matter. You don't need to see me, you just need to see the cards. Two of Pentacles here. This one I always think has the greatest sense of freedom. She doesn't seem to be struggling. She seems like she knows what she's doing, but this is about turning solid to ethereal or ethereal to solid, bringing a shift, bringing the new thought forms down into the earth. And there's something also that can reference kind of opposition in planetary charts from this card, particularly the moon and the sun. You can get a sense of eclipses coming out of this card. You also get a sense of the sacral chakra because of her skirt, but there's something here that always, a little bit like the Six of Air in the Good Tarot, where it's almost back to front. I feel like this sometimes comes across as if her legs are on back to front. It's like you haven't fully moved into the new energy. You haven't completed the change. It's being in transformation, but in a physical transformation. Then we have the Two of Earth. This one to me has the greatest sense of utter ease. This one's like just reaching at the two pentacles and just moving them to where they go, and there's no sense that that's not where they should be. It's almost automatic that this energy should unfold in this way. She's very comfortable in her seat. There's often the sense of some kind of creature behind, and there's a face above in the distance. And she has energy in her heart chakra and in her sacral. And she has all this kind of wonderful chiffon cascading from her, a little bit like an empire dress with kind of a high waistline. And behind all of the old confusions look as though they're being swept very cautiously backwards to put behind, to move forwards to the new changed energy. And the Afro-Brazilian, this one's about finding a kind of a quiet. It's like asking you to pause. This is a very still frequency, but it's also, you've got the drums behind, and the drums talk about the rhythmic body. There's something about this card, Heartbeats, that suggests that the change is not in the environment around you, but is in your physical. Some kind of switch of energy to help you on the pathway towards some kind of healing, to silence your regular rhythms, to step outside of your normal pulses, to almost physically be in a new frequency somehow. So, sorry, there was a strange sense behind me, but there's nothing there. If there is, let me know. Three of Pentacles. Oh, sorry, no, hang on. We haven't done this too. I left it behind. So, in the first one, we had the Ophiuchus mentioning in the centre. Here now we have the snake. And this time the snake is in, it's representing Jupiter in Capricorn. And the snake is eating itself, but it's forming a figure of 8 and it's dealing with yin and yang. This card has a much more powerful sense of diversity of change, but it also has that sense that you are king of your own change. You are the god of decision as to when you want to transform your energies and when you want to move from the dark to the light in balance, how you can switch between the two. So there's a real sense that the change somehow in this card doesn't necessarily have to be permanent, because at any moment the energy could be switched to look and reference back. There's a sense of not releasing and letting go, but incorporating. There's something about the balance being set in that one. So Three of Pentacles. These are very, very different. Three of Pentacles, though, is quite can be quite a complex energy frequency in many ways. The traditional notion is of the stonemason working, apprenticeship, learning, skills, new, a pathway, understanding, bringing your intellectual energy into the physical world, and creating something that you can move forwards with. It's almost, I often think with this card, it's like the act of doing is less important than the results. The focus of the results in the physical is the journey point forwards that you're working on. Now, the next one, these are difficult because I can't sense an order in them. I'm going to go to this one. This Thoth one, which is Mars in Capricorn. This one in particular, more than any other card, talks to me about the Nikola Tesla magic code, and this is the 369 code. This to me represents Source working with you in the 3D world on a 3D project. So it's like this frequency, but this is Source inspired to whirl up the frequency, and it's layered in I want to say there's a great sense of water and air within that, but particularly water, that this is very much an emotional frequency building around you, bringing something completely different towards you. The Three of Pentacles in this deck, to me, represents fate, the Norns. It's like the thing that's coming in the 3D world has a fixed moment in time. It's a written moment, but it's much more layered and complex. Sometimes he is seen as the raw masculine that needs to go away, as the two women are changing things. The girl here, she has no hand. It's vanished already. So is she vanishing? Is she appearing? There's lots of different frequencies in the card. There's that sense of traffic lights, but in the wrong order. Is it an energy that's saying stop for a moment? So there's lots of different frequencies that can pull themselves from this, but there's definitely that sense that the middle earth, that kind of notion, is where the work is taking place. It's still very much about the physical. In the Muse Tarot, this card can be so very confusing. But really what it's about weaving this source divine frequency into the physical world and into a community. So this is about how you bring down and apply things that are working for your journey forwards as you go through this post-epiphanal moment, because you've been through the other three suits. You've gone through the ideas, you've put emotions to them, and you've edited them. And this is about bringing what you've just learned down into the real world and fixing it into the real world. Now we have the Three of Pentacles in the Afro-Caribbean. No, Afro-Brazilian, sorry. This one always looks as though waiting for an inspiration, waiting for something to turn up, holding out, being ready, being grateful, being open to an energy being delivered to you. But there is something very slightly futile about the energy in this sometimes. There is a sense of inaction, I guess I want to say, of not really creating the thing yourself. It's like, I've seen what the world does, I've reproduced what the world did, I've done it twice now, but it's not become something. And so you stand holding, waiting for some kind of frequency to magically transform. It might be that it does, I'm not saying it doesn't, but there is a sense of inaction, not participating in that card. And then in the good tarot, this always reminds me of One Stop Venus, the mannequin that comes to life. This is emerging from something into a new world. There's transformation of vision. There's butterflies on the arms and on her wings at the back. She has a Triskelion coin forming across her chest. She holds a staff and it's right next to her head, her ear. And quite often this card will come across with a sense of new uploads, downloads, frequencies coming in from above. So that ear ringing sensation often comes in for me with that Three of Earth. So let's put these up in their places and move on to fours. So fours are healings. So let's get them out. So this is quite a complicated card in many ways, because the frequency of it is a healing. And it's so often depicted as a figure holding on to pentacles, as if you just can't let go of the material plane. You're scared to let go, and yet you're putting this illusion above your head of a kind of halo of one of the pentacles. But there is this sense of hanging on to money, and it being the vision, there's a sort of a crystal above the forehead that's not fully seen. The crown is almost blocking it. The accumulation of material goods is blocking your natural flow of your third eye. And yet sometimes this card can represent absolutely being in the flow. So in this one here, it's meant to represent knowing what's precious to you, having whittled it down, having chosen the material aspects that you most need. So very much a hoarder and then a minimalist in many ways, that sense of letting go. There's also in this Four of Pentacles, she has a doll on her earring, and that is that real sense of a spiritual inheritance, understanding, having listened to the journey, having done the work, wearing the badge of your spiritual inheritance and knowing how to move forwards. What do you need for your energy in the future? And then we have this one. So this is for materials, because obviously they're all materials. Now, this card, all of the materials, the coins are always represented by roses, but there's something about this glamour that kind of has an energy of being obsessed by the physical attributes of beauty, of appearance, of fine things. And yet, just down here in the background, there's a little small camel. Camels really represent a sense of passionate emotions, and this is like a shadow. It's like all of the obsession with the sort of surface beauty is not nourishing this character. You need to let go of elements that you cling to. So then we have the Four of Earth. This is such a beautiful card. This is an emergence. This is a return. This is post-healing. The healing's done. With these three, they are fours. Well, with these two, they haven't healed. They haven't even heard or observed the lesson. She's observed the lesson and she's very deeply meditative, very calm as she comes forwards. This one is emerging. This one has a butterfly transforming in its hands. The wings are unfurling. There's a huge connection to air energy, to spirit. But there's something about the natural world gifting something towards you to help you, to assist you. It's like you have some kind of fairy tale mystical magic coming in to work with you. So then in the off, I love this one. This was the one that always inspired all the gates of Zababa and all of the other Babylonian Sumerian gateways. This is the courtyard. This is, you walk through the drawbridge into the courtyard and then you heal, you settle down, you work through your inner workings, and when you're ready, you push forward. This is the sun in Capricorn, and it has all four elements on the four towers. And there's a gateway, and at the end of the gateway, when you're prepared, you can go back out, you can move on in your journey because you've understood. And I always suspect an animal spirit will greet you and will let you pass through that frequency, or the frequency will fall upon you. So it's very much about coming into a sense of power, understanding the thought gift that you've created for yourself, and working it out, taking it with you, moving through a journey, and then allowing that new energy to settle across you. And then we have the Four of Pentacles in the Afro-Brazilian. Do you know, sometimes I look at this card and I really don't know what to make of it. Because there's a sense of pity, there's a sense of disdain, there's a sense of half a story that comes off of it. There's a sense of a guy still doing this, still hanging on to this energy of wanting material gains. If only, you know, he could, you know, there he was, he's held out his things, nothing's come, and so now he's back. There's a sense of kind of charity, there's a sense of great comfort from this, but it's still, there's something about this that's not engaging in action. He's not moving himself forwards. So this image seems very, very dark, and I really hope we can see it. So let's pop these back. And let's move on to 5. 5 is change. 5, let's get them all out. What's missing? Oh, that one. Right, so where are we going to be? I guess that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. Just to kind of give a sense of where they move and how far they move from the original message. So, Five of Pentacles. This is the idea of being locked outside of church, being excommunicated, being impoverished, being shut away, having something within society that you yearn for but you can't get hold of somehow. So and ordinarily I would say that this card has a kind of energy. It doesn't suggest hope. There's a sense with this card that suggests stuck, whereas in this deck, again, there's this huge energy of despair, but there is this light that comes down and it shows you the Five Pentacles. And in many ways, the solution is just here. The key to the door is there when you're ready to open it. But you have to decide when to open it. And at the moment, she can't get over the despair. It's very much the frequency of the Four of Cups, with the person sitting underneath a tree, looking down at the three spilt cups and not noticing the new cup that's coming in. This is that energy of both of these are very much inactive. But the second one does have the key. It does offer the fact that there is a solution, a movement forwards. So the Five of Pentacles in this deck is it's Mercury in Taurus. All of the fives are pentagrams. There's something about this one that always says to me that whatever you believe the physical world gives you or has for you, that there is a sense of it not being real, but being a kind of bone structure that's been painted over, but you could just push the paint off and see the true bones beneath it, so that you can reformulate, you can change, you can develop, and you can bring a new energy to it. But there is this sense in this one of it being the time to move on. There is a sense of movement. It says worry, but that's moving on from worry. It's like all the cogs are sliding into place on that one. The Five of Materials, I love this one. There's a real sense of music to this. There's a real sense of the gateway that was in this four, the moving through. It's like there's something through the ether, through the astral, that needs pulling in while you're sleeping. Like there's some kind of healing, and this hand reaching forwards, the glimmer of light at the end. And there's something very majestic about it. There's something a little bit kind of Taj Mahal, Mughal sort of era. But there is something about musical writing, frequencies, the stave, the flow, the fluidity. There's something about the music of the spheres. There is something about the music of the spheres too in this one. Then we have the Five of Earth, which is a fairy emergent, and we have a division of 4 moving to 1. So it has 5, but it's talking about taking the 4 and applying them somehow into one new, much more energized, with this light coming across. There's a small songbird. She has very beautifully tall, mossy hair, and there's new growth. There's a kind of an energy of zipping from autumn to spring in like one easy step somehow about this card. So that's the And there's something very golden, there's something very new about the energy of this card. And then the Five of Pentacles here, it's really about taking the things that you need to create a new future, to nest, to move, to adapt, to build, to sort of, I guess there's an energy in this card of taking what is broken, what is snapped, what is wasteful, and weaving that together to create something else. I mean, you know, I want to say a sense of a love nest, but it's more to do with that energy of working with another, coming together in the real world with others, with a community, to build something, you know, in the shade of the Yggdrasil tree, in the energy of the world tree resonating down. So now let's go on to the sixes. So 6, balance, flow. It's a very beautiful card. It's always a lovely card to see. It's about give and take, to offer and to receive, and it's got that sense of Libra and balance. Quite often you see a figure offering money to the poor people that left the, you know, church that they were excommunicated from. There are hands at the bottom of this card reaching for the money. There's no sense in this card though of, I want to say kind of, I wanted to say philanthropy then, but I kind of, there's no sense in this card of someone giving because it makes them feel better about themselves. This is freely giving because you have more than you need. So it seems like a natural and fair exchange somehow. And there's something about with the coins all piled up behind, that sense that this is all coming in as not a thought process, but as a kind of a spiritual, not desire or obligation, but as a spiritual understanding. So here we have adding pieces together, creating a flow. We have hidden behind the 6, we have the infinity symbol, and the movement and the beautiful sort of healing colour. But this is really about bringing a new energy to the world, to the natural world, to the physical all around you. Then we have this amazing 6 of materials where more than any it says you're completely in your flow, you're mirroring your moment in time, you're creating exactly the reflections and refractions and frequencies that you were always destined to. There's such a wonderful, loving, celebrating frequency about this 6 of materials. Absolutely gorgeous card. It's so abundant with energy, this card. Then we have success, and here we have 6 of the planets all marked around the center, and we have the moon in Taurus. So this is flow. This is also talking about the geometric comforts of sextiles that you might find in astrology, as opposed to the pentagram here. We're now on a wonderful kind of circular hexagon. I don't know where hexagram came from. There's also, I think it's the Rosicrucian flower and cross in the middle, but don't quote me on that one. And then all around a very far distance are sparks of blue, as if there's great new energy being focused around communication, to flow into the world by explaining to the world how to move on, how to be in flow. Then we have, in the good tarot, we have this lovely stag, returning us to that frequency of the ace. So here was the ace, that new beginning, and now we're in the flow. You know, we've gone through a whole section of life. We've got decorations, we have memories, we have treasured possessions, we remember fondly our movement through the world. Again, there's that sense of something new. There's something about this deer where it's learnt lessons. There's a sense that this deer, this stag, has had broken horns at some point, but has learnt to continue to grow into something more magnificent. This one's much more like a white hart than the other one. The other one seems very much more male. There's something at the moment with this one that's coming across as much more feminine frequency, this flow. There's something interesting about this one that feels much more like it wants to be a trophy, or an achievement, or something to pat yourself on the back. There's something about it emerging as good thoughts in the physical world. It's not about the physical actions, but it's about the emotional intentions applied to the physical. And then we have, I do love this one, we have the Six of Pentacles, where it has a tree with a bow, it has an altar laid out on a fallen tree, sort of celebrating life cycles. But there's also something about this one about coming together with others. There's something about flowing towards each other, bringing offerings, not just to the natural world, but to each other, sharing food. There's cutting flowers for each other. There's something about celebrating with each other, with the natural world, in the frequency of that six. So, sevens. We're getting there, we're getting there. I'm just very worried that the whole video is dark. I can't see myself at all. I'm just a black silhouette. So, fingers crossed. Because I don't want to sit and do this all again, having waited months and months. Months and months. Having waited a fair while. So, Seven of Pentacles, traditionally harvest. 7 is a mystical number. It talks about divine creativity. You've planted everything. Everything's ready to harvest. But in this card, the sense is that the harvest hasn't quite arrived. But there's an abundance hidden within things. The fruits haven't fallen from the tree, but they're growing. They're forming something new. And it is physical results in the real world, remember. It's not emotions and it's not anything else. It's physical things. But those physical things can be ideas that you've planted into the world to provide rewards. Absolutely gorgeous, this one. You know, you can see he's got an energy of the magician about him. He's using that energy to draw and grow what is his sort of philosophical bonsai. And all of that energy of what's been planted is now coming up and growing. It's difficult with the next one. This is always, it says failure, and it frightens people, this card, when it comes. This is about, there's very much a warring energy of bulls, Taurus, and very much an energy of Saturn and restrictions and army and helmets and a sense of metal feathers, like like it's the wrong frequency to harvest. This is very much a card that talks about an inability to harvest. Even though all the right frequencies have been made by you, it's not coming into being. The difference being now, we're moving into an air-earth frequency. So, and at the moment in Taurus, we have Gaia, Uranus, sitting there shaking up the earth, trying to vibrate everything to bring new frequency. So there's something shimmering about the energy in this card that wants to transform. So let's go to the Seven of Earth. This again is like the Five, where we have a different layout. Here he has Six. He is in balance. He's reached this, and now he's ready for the next part of his journey, and it's a journey with magic. There are fairies around, and he's beginning to transform into some kind of fairy creature, or at least to reach out and have some kind of connection to the natural world and all the energies of fairies. I want to say there's a very strong kind of sacred pixie moment, but I'm saying that because there's something about laughter and when is it appropriate, because he's looking very willfully, mournfully serious, and there's something about the energy of the card around that's really got a sense of not humour, but a sense of fun attached to it. And here the seventh is emerging as kind of like passions from within the earth. Now this Seven of Materials from the Muse is just a wonderful card. It's like the divine feminine coming out from the galactic center of the universe in Sagittarius. She's dressed in a wedding dress, yet she's got jackboots on. She's marching her way to any wedding she wants to go to. But there is that sense of bringing the ethereal into the physical, bringing a transformation, pulling in magic. There's something wonderfully celebratory, but there's a humbleness to this. She's ducking down to come through. There's such abundance, though. There's such an energy of possibility that comes along with this card. And then the Afro-Brazilian is kind of about, it's about celebrating the Yggdrasil tree. It's about making an offering, but there's something about the sense of emotional growth, because there's now water, a bowl with a flower growing from it. There's something about being slightly less certain with this card, still slightly allowing the larger forces around you to be your guide rather than guiding yourself. And I'm not saying that that's right or wrong. I'm just observing it as an energy. So that's sevens. Let's move on to 8. We're nearly through this little moment. So 8. 8 is very much about mastery. Having worked, it kind of links into the apprenticeship of the Three of Pentacles, and it takes it into a mastery. It's like you finally worked out how to create your own physical world. You know, he is the one making all the abundance. But actually for me, this card will always represent a key. 8 being like a change, the infinity. It's like the lock. You can finally twist and turn. It echoes back to the Two of Pentacles, and in some the 6, depending on the flow. But there's something about you are meant to sense that hard graft in the world, having worked for your reward. But in many ways, it's much more about, I'm going to bring up these two together. So that sense of the tree of life, the key that fits, that we started with in that 10, this is about having the key to move on to the next level of that. So, and then here, this is the cello with the notes around it, the coins, the pentacles. This is something about it being very much a musical frequency. There's a small sort of pixie fairy about to take flight from the cello. The cello feels as though it's part of the natural world. It's kind of wanting to remind us of the importance of wood in our lives for making sounds, for making homes, for making boats, all kinds of different objects. But that connection to wood, that connection, that intertwining of sort of ivies and things around how we get entangled in things in the physical, but how ultimately we're the piper, we have the ability to play the tune differently. So that's the 8 of Earth there. This 8 of discs, as they're called, it says prudence, but it's actually, it's more about wisdom somehow. It's about knowing that there's a divine timing. It's about coming into your moment. And this is the sun in Virgo. This is transformation. Remember, Virgo is always linked to the notion of Persephone. There's something very like opening or switching on a life force. There's something about this sort of epiphanal energy in the real world, something you do. So the 8 of Pentacles here, this is a beautiful card. She's worked really hard on, she has bowls full of herbs and healings, and then here she has paper and books and a quill and working. She's really worked and she's ready to turn around. The pentacles over her that are in this flash of inspirational light that forms all around her head, they have a tendency to be all the same apart from the 5th one along, which actually has a star pentacle shape on it. And this is like talking about stages. It's almost like, do you remember back to your last moment when you felt locked out of society, when you felt excommunicated from the thing, and since that point you've worked your way through it, you've developed some kind of new energy. There's a candle, there's a sense, 2 candles, there's a sense of bringing together all of the emotions and all of your passions and all of your air editing. It's about bringing all the elements together to move forwards, to change the frequency. Now, the 8 of Materials, this is very much sort of Hindu Lakshmi, many-armed goddesses. But what I find fascinating about this card is the darkness of the body, the sense that all comes from the void. She also, all of the arms of the left-hand side of her body are tattooed, like her past is all written, and the energy of her now is clear arms, and she's very much playing yo-yo with all the elements of the physical world at the moment. It's about being in a flow, but in a flow where you're weaving emotion towards, because we've only got 1 card left, a kind of physical divinity within the world. So here the 8 of Pentacles in the Afro-Brazilian just talks about really fire and earth. There's a candle and it's very small, and laid out in the large single pentacle that was a tray, we now have a life journey, and it's creating the beginnings of a spiral. It's beginning to have that sense of natural flow that's coming into it. It's very much bathed in yellow. You very much get the sense of life force of the sun, of the solar plexus. But there's also something about this that's almost, there's a white lace cloth, and there's something about this cloth that's kind of suggesting an inability to properly be in the world. It's like you're learning, you're programming, you're seeing, but there's something where you're still, it's almost like when I was a kid, there was a family and they had a new carpet fitted in their hallway, and then they had this plastic runner that ran over the middle of it. So it was there to protect the carpet, but since it was always there, you never saw the carpet. It's like having some kind of illusion or delusion that stops you seeing the truth, that just kind of prettifies something around you. Anyway, so that's the 8s. Now let's move to the 9s, which are our final card, and it's that sense of the Divine 9. Previously you were heading towards 10. I feel at the moment the key energy that we're trying to achieve with Pentacles is to reach 9, is to reach the Divine 9 number. And this is a card that has, from the very beginning, always been about, and it's a very rare card, it's about a woman achieving everything alone. A woman, it's a wealthy woman, she's abundant, she has a bird on her arm, she has a leather gauntlet for the bird of prey to sit upon, she has her hand in red and green grapes, she's got a huge necklace around her neck, she has a pearl earring, she's a very rare purple magenta colour, which is interesting because the colour is very much, it's got that Tyrolean purple sense where they had to break up all the snails. It's a very wealthy colour. So yeah, being strongly independent is definitely the frequency, and it's usually a very feminine card, because there's a lot of criticism that this woman reaches everything that she needs her own way, and then finally she gets what she deserves, which is a bloke in his castle. Not really ever my favourite fairy story ending. So she's made it alone. She knows exactly what she's doing. So we have a very similar thing, but in this 9 of Pentacles, it's about becoming strongly independent with spirit. It's about how the real world is only abundant to you when you connect to spirit, when you understand your purpose. And there's a bird sitting on the fruit that she's pulling down, the pentacle, the mandala that she's pulling down, and that all above the top there's dried herbs that very much feel like they're about storing things that you can use later to cleanse other things, that sense of smudge sticks. Her bowl here is abundant with yet more herbs and a mortar and pestle sort of sense of creating something new. All around her there's candles below, there's books, she's reading, she understands, she's very much, you kind of want to say, you know, like she's coming to her power. It's the cunning woman, it's the witch, it's the energy to create with spirit, to co-create in very many ways, but it's a very powerful energy. And in the 9 of Materials, there's something about it being a kind of sacral epiphany and rising out of this energy, coming up. And then there's this sense of the hand showering you in loving abundance, in a cornucopia, and you becoming one with the world, because her dress, her vest thing that she has on is very much like the background. It's like you become the frequency of the world you see around you. And then we have the Nine of Earth. There's something about this one that is heavy. There's something about this one that doesn't feel like a celebration. You know, these two here, they're bouncing with joy. They're full of joy. This one's prayerful. There's a wonderful flower in the hand that seems to be tingling with magic, but there's something trapped. It's again, I want to say, it's that energy of false gold, or the notion that all gold is false in many ways. It's an item that we attribute some kind of monetary value to and possessiveness, and to the fairy folk, they don't understand this obsession. So transform your vision, because again we've got that sense of a butterfly mask on the face. Transforming how you see something, reaching a divine moment. But there's something I want to kind of say, like needing a good wash with this card. There's something unfresh, static. There's something that still needs to be moved. It's like the divinity is almost in your hands, but this figure can't quite transform it. And then we have this one, which is Venus in Virgo. And again, this has warriors, kings, queens. It's kind of got a weird sort of spaceman, Christian sort of moons. There's all different energies going on in this card of gain that's bursting forth. But the thing that's always fascinated me is the green and the pink orb and then the blue orb, as if it's talking about how you take the two heart chakras and combine them together to make something new, to make a third frequency. So there's always something incredibly heart and love and physical world combining about the way in which this card is formulated, and it explodes from within you. Now, this last one is, I love this card. It's the only one that's not a female figure. This is a guy talking about how you've outgrown your Yggdrasil tree. It's you've grown and you're breaking out of your pot. You need to replant yourself. And he's laying out things to work out how to build a better physical world for himself, because you know, it's pot bound and it's smashing through. It needs new space, and there's that sense of working with spirit to get there. I want to say, he's making the wrong offerings. He's just handing nature. You know, it's no good me pulling oranges off that tree and offering them to a nature altar, because I've done nothing with them. Nature made them. Why are you giving them back to nature? If you want to make an offering to nature, it needs to be something that you've taken and changed, something of the natural world that you've alchemized or cooked or changed in some way, but you've created a new frequency about it compared to what the earth itself brought. So yeah, that's Pentacles. I really hope you can see this video. We're going to move on to court cards next, and then we'll have 6 videos, and then there will be more on various other aspects of reading cards, possibly oracles as well at some point. But let's just keep going through the different frequencies that arise from the different ways in which you read. I'm going to do some about spreads as well. So that's Pentacles. Hooray! Sorry if I'm just a silhouette, but I'm going to put that out because I'm sure you can see the cards when I bring them forwards. So anyway, have a beautiful day. I love you all very much, and wassail.